Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning, and very happy to welcome Carol Hector Harris from the U.S. Census Bureau. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I want you to know I've already counted myself, so I should already be checked off on your list.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
You're so welcome. But let's talk all about it, because this is something that only happens about once every 10 years, correct?
Yes, it does. And the Census Bureau itself, aside from the 2020, the Census Bureau itself is important because it provides official information about our nation's people, our businesses, all of our industries and institutions. And that's because there are many surveys that we conduct outside of the 2020 census. But the 2020 census is important because the population count determines how 675 billion, that's billion federal dollars, are distributed to the state of Ohio and then on to local government and agencies. The population count determines our voting district boundaries, Susie, and the number of congressional seats for the state of Ohio. And as you said, the Constitution mandates that the census is taken every 10 years. So what we count, we have to live with. We have to live with that total population result that we're collecting right now for the next 10 years. There's no do-over. If we don't count everyone, we'll not receive our fair share of that $675 billion pie. No do-over.
How did they come up with the 10? Because so much happens in 10 years.
Well, that's in the Constitution. It's mandated that we do this every 10 years. And the thing of it is, if we don't get the population count right, like I said, our state and then on down to our local communities won't receive the money that we need because it's all based on population. Those dollars that come to us down to our community, those dollars support our lives through funding for our schools, our hospitals, and especially with the health situation going on right now, our hospitals need all of the funding that they can get.
Yes.
It funds transportation, emergency services, infrastructure like our roads and bridges, and just so much more. We could lose a seat in Congress if our population decreases, and that's our voice. So we don't want that to happen. There's just so much riding on a complete count. So we're encouraging everyone to complete the 2020 census right now. They can do it online at my2020census.gov. They can do it over the phone. And before I go further, as you know, online, this is the first time ever we've been able to do it online. But you can also do it over the phone at 844-330-2020. Again, that's 844-330-2020. Or you can mail in the paper questionnaire that you received. It's important, it's easy, and it's safe. And you know how easy it is because you did it.
Yes. Tell everyone who has not done it yet, what do you have to answer on that?
It's just basic, simple questions. Your name, the name of everyone who's in your household. And this is all as of April 1st. Just imagine if somehow all of us stood outside and waved at the sky so that a satellite could take our picture. This is a snapshot of the nation as of April 1st. So we want people to complete the census with the name, the address. We will ask for a phone number in case there's any information on the questionnaire that's not clear and we need to follow up. We ask birth date, that kind of stuff. We will never ask you for any money, never. If you get something in the mail that says it's the questionnaire and it's asking for a donation or your banking information, throw it away because that is not the official census questionnaire. It's just very simple, as you know, and it's just a few questions, but it means so much. Like I said, that $675 billion is sitting out there. And, you know, we don't need to leave any money on the table. Whatever is due us, we need to receive.
Mm-hmm.
We need to receive it.
You know, this being an election year, we know how important Ohio is during that. Does the number of people living here have anything to do with our votes in the Electoral College as well?
In the Electoral College, I really don't know that.
But you did say about Congress as far as who
definitely
represents
the
us.
seats
Yes.
in Congress,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the voting district boundaries. The Electoral College, that I'm not sure of, but I can find out and give you a call back.
Okay,
and
all
let
right.
you know.
Well, don't leave just yet. We'll find that out later.
Yes, because we need to talk about how the areas that you serve, how well
Yes.
they're doing right now.
And that was my very next question. How are we doing? Who's raising their hand saying, "I'm here, count me"?
Well, right now, nationally, the self-response, it's approximately 63%. Statewide, we're doing even better than we are nationally. Statewide, we're at about 67%. And that's about 52% over the Internet. So as I said before, the first time you've been able to do the census on the Internet, and 52% of Ohioans who have responded so far are doing exactly that.
How long do we have to count? How long do we keep this up?
In September 30th, it ends, but we don't want people to wait. Often when we know, the date is off in the distance, I can wait. No, we don't want you to wait. We want you to respond right now, and we'd like people to get that self-response rate up. You know, we're shooting for 100%, and we're not at 100% right now, so we are below our goal. But right now, statewide, we're not doing too bad. Like I said, we're at 67%. In 2010, though, we were at 69%.
At this
so
point,
we're a little bit shy of 2010. But in the area, in your neighbor's area, in Holmes County, this self-response is at a little more than 71%.
Wow.
They've done, but 20% have done it by the Internet, so that's not too bad. But in 2010, the final response rate for Holmes County was almost 72%. So Holmes County is just about where it was in 2010. In Millersburg, the rate right now is at 65%. And more than half of the folks in Millersburg responded by the Internet. In 2010, let's see, Millersburg was at 71.5%.
Okay.
In Stark County, right now the rate is at 72%. Almost 55% is by the Internet.
Wow.
In 2010, it was at 73%. And they did that without the Internet. So it's close, but not really where they were in 2010. Canton is at 57.5% right now, with a third of them responding by the Internet. But in 2010, Canton responded at 65%. So they're a little bit behind on that one right now.
Any idea why that is? Why we might be a little bit lax
this
time?
Not sure.
Yeah.
It may be because there's so much going on in people's lives right now. That could be it. Or remember when we were just saying what the deadline is? Often when people hear a deadline, they wait. And we don't want anybody to wait. We want people to respond right now so we can get them counted, so that we can have an accurate count for our communities and our state.
You know, I have to be honest. I honestly thought that this was more as historical record keeping, so that years from now people could use the census the way we use the census, by finding out what our, when we're looking up our genealogy and we want to find out about our great-grandparents. I thought that that's mostly what this was for. I had no idea this had anything to do with allocation of dollars, very important dollars for our state.
Absolutely. There's almost nothing that we do that's not dependent upon the census population count. It feeds into, like I said, just about everything. When I was talking about hospitals and emergency services, transportation, roads and bridges, we have a lifestyle, Susie, and often we just take things for granted. We don't think about where the money comes to support the services that we need. But it's all based on population. You can't do a more progressive thing for your neighbor right now than to be counted, to make sure that your neighborhood, your community, your town, and our state of Ohio gets its fair share of that federal pie. So we're encouraging everybody to please complete the census.
You mentioned the mail-in piece, and you mentioned you can go online. I always imagine people going door to door. That's how I think of the census takers. Do you still do that?
Susie, everyone, when you ask people about the census, that is the thing that people remember,
yes.
People going door to door. But see, with being able to do it online, doing it over the phone, or doing it with the paper questionnaire, that limits the number of the traditional census takers having to go door to door because they don't knock where there's already been a census completed. They're only going door to door to help people respond if they've not responded at all. Right now, we're doing that in Holmes, Stark, Tuscarawas, and Wayne counties. We are going door to door. And next week, we're going to be going door to door to households all over the state that have not responded.
That begs the question, because we are experiencing something we've never experienced in the last 100 years, and that would be a global pandemic. How on earth do you do census taking during this time?
Well, we have to be very, very safe. We are conducting all of our operations, but in this time that you're describing, you're so right. How do we possibly do it given the health situation, the pandemic that's going on? Well, we're using personal protective equipment because we have to protect my colleagues who are out there going door to door, but we also have to protect the general public. That is our top priority. So we are taking the advice of federal agencies, Governor DeWine's office here in the state of Ohio, as well as local officials. And we've trained my colleagues to observe all social distancing protocols, and we are wearing official government-provided PPE. That's that personal protective equipment, and it's for the safety of the enumerators, the census takers that are out there, as well as that of the general public. That is a big deal.
It almost seems like a shame that anybody needs to go door to door anymore, because you've got so many other ways to be counted in this day and age, particularly
and
to be
takes money.
Exactly.
It takes money.
And you're paying. Are they volunteers? Or are these part-time jobs or something?
They're paid and they're trained. We started recruiting months and months ago, and we're continuing to recruit so that we can get this entire operation finished by the end of September.
Boy, they're brave, aren't they? Because I have a feeling when people were signing up for this, they didn't really realize what they were signing up for when you think they would be going door to door with COVID going on.
Well, that's true months ago, but we still have people who are stepping up. And
God bless them.
God bless them. You got to be in awe because they do know what it is that they're facing out there, but they know that they're going to have their protective equipment on. They know that they're going to be observing social distancing. So they understand all of that, and they also understand how important that they get each one of their neighbors to count. What we did, Susie, in hiring, we tried for this operation, this door-to-door, what we call non-response follow-up. We tried to hire people who represented their own neighborhood so that when they went out door to door, they would be very comfortable. And hopefully their neighbors that have not responded yet, they would recognize them and take their encouragement to complete the 2020 census. If you saw one of your neighbors out there and they're trying to get you to respond, then because maybe if you know that person or you've seen them around, maybe then you'd be more trusting, because some people are afraid of completing the census because they think that we might share the information they give us with some other agency, but we don't. We don't share information with the FBI, not Homeland Security, not ICE. People like me, we take an oath for life. Mm-hmm. Even if we don't work for the Census Bureau anymore, we take an oath for life, Susie, that we would never, ever share any information that we're exposed to in collecting any data. And people like me, I don't see it anyway. Mm-hmm. The people who go door to door, all they know is that people are responding, and we can tell how effective they're being because we look at the increase in numbers every day. So this is just so unbelievably and incredibly important. I don't think we think about how grocers, when they decide where to put a grocery store, they're not going to put it where there are no people living.
Wow.
They're going to look at the population data for every area they're considering opening a grocery store.
Makes sense.
So that's where population matters. Mm-hmm. Look at daycare centers. They need to know how many little kids to expect. They're going to be looking at the Census Bureau data for children. That way they can be prepared. The same way with schools. They need to know how many kids to expect. So they look at Census Bureau population data.
We're speaking with Carol Hector Harris. She is with the U.S. Census Bureau, and we're going to be right back after these words. You're listening to Our Community. Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Carol Hector Harris from the U.S. Census Bureau. Really important to get an accurate head count because it makes so much difference for our state and government funding. And even as you were saying before the break, Carol, where people put essential services like grocery stores and schools. They need to go where the people are. So this is what they use to do that for the next 10 years. Like you said, there's no do-over. This is it. This is 2020. This is the year of the census. Be counted. Now, I've got a couple of questions for you as people are beginning to go door to door. We live in times, unfortunately, where people have to be very careful for whom they might open their door to if they don't know their neighbor, if this would be a stranger. What kind of credentials or something are presented to prove to the person at the door that this is someone from the Census Bureau or representing the Census Bureau?
Well, remember, as I said, we are definitely practicing social distancing, but everyone has an ID. I don't go door to door, but I have a Census Bureau ID. They have all of their gear has the Census Bureau logo on it. But the thing of it is, you know, in today's times, you can never be too safe. And if you've completed the census already, you know you did, it's done, but somebody is coming to your door saying that they are with the Census Bureau and you don't think so, you should call the police. You always should be safe. Always be safe.
So we know that if, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but if we have already completed it, we've mailed it in or we've gone online and we've already done this, our name and address should not be on their list anyway, correct? They shouldn't be coming to our house. Okay, so if they're at your house, they're not with them. Okay. All right, well, that answers that.
Correct. And, you know, you can never be too safe. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
So if you've done it, if you did it yesterday, I mean, we try to, their computer devices are updated routinely. But if you did it yesterday, they may still knock today because maybe it hasn't been updated from yesterday.
Sure.
But we're pretty quick at updating our data. So no one should be knocking if you've done it. Plus, if you don't feel comfortable about answering the door, don't. They're going to leave some information anyway. So always be safe. If somebody comes to your door saying they're with the census and they're asking you for money or your bank account information, you know for sure that is not the Census Bureau at all.
Okay.
For that, you should but you should call the police because somebody is misrepresenting themselves. They're not representing us at all.
Is there some way to be a really good door answerer? in this day and age? Should we come to the door with our mask on and maybe already with our own pen in hand if we see that that's who it is knocking on the door, so that we're practicing all the protocols that go along with COVID?
Absolutely. You know, we do have to protect ourselves. And as I said, you know, our census takers, they're out there with the gear on protecting you from them. And so we would appreciate it if somebody protected us from them.
Yes.
But like I said, if you don't want to answer the door, not a problem, because they're going to leave you some information so that you can get it done. And you can go, that might be just the nudge. That might be just the reminder that people need to say, oh, that's right. And they've seen commercials on TV or heard it on the radio or seen it in the newspaper. Just maybe this will be the nudge they need to remind them, oh, I forgot. I need to go do it right now. So we would appreciate them doing it. We're doing it right away. And in addition to the census takers going door to door, we're also counting people right now who live in group quarters. I don't know if you knew that, but we are counting people who live like in nursing homes, and we're also counting people in temporary living arrangements like long-term hotels or shelters for the homeless. Even we go with advocates to go where the homeless may be staying, in bridges, under bridges, or in parks. Anything like that. We're also counting people in domestic violence shelters, in campgrounds, in hotels, anywhere there are people. Like I said, group quarters, like nursing homes, anywhere people are, that's where we're going to count, because we want to count as many people as possible. We are shooting for 100%.
Let's give that website again. What is that, please?
It's my2020census.gov.
My2020census.gov. And phone number is?
844-330-2020. And if you still have that paper questionnaire, just mail it in.
Great. Carol, what got you interested in this? You obviously love your work.
Well, it's important. You know, until I got into the census, you know, I had an idea of the fact that the Census Bureau tries to count everyone doing the census every 10 years. And even as a student, I know when I was looking for statistics that I could go to the Census Bureau. Back then when I was in school, I would be calling them on the phone or sending them a letter. But now you can call the Census Bureau and get a researcher and help you get the information you want. A lot of it is posted online anyway. I had a vague idea of what the Census Bureau could do because I knew what I needed. But when it came down to thinking about how daycare centers look for population numbers so that they know how many little kids to expect, or even hospitals where they need to locate, especially children's hospitals, how the schools look to see how many little kids do we have in our community. They look at the census to see how many people are reporting babies right now, so that in a few years, they know they'll be going to daycare centers or they'll be going to schools, so they can plan for that. Researchers in our community who are writing proposals to provide all sorts of services, they go to the Census Bureau for population numbers, because you can't provide a service in an area where there are people who don't need it. So they also go to the census for the data that they need in order to do proposals that they're compiling. There's so many different ways that population information is needed and is used. And it only takes a few minutes. You know from your own experience. It didn't take you long, did it?
No, not a bit.
No. And look at how much difference it makes. You and every last one of your neighbors on your street, you all count. And then on to the next street and on to the next street till you get to your whole community, your whole neighborhood, your whole town, your whole city, and then the whole state of Ohio.
You are an amazing spokesperson for the Census Bureau. I just tell them you need a raise. You are so good at telling us how important this is because I didn't know. It just hasn't been something on my mind. Well, it hasn't happened in 10 years. But you had said when we first started our conversation that there's all kinds of things that you do in between those 10 years. Does that have to do with helping these other places find the research that they need? What do you do? Well, I'm sure you don't put your feet up for 10 years.
Well, the American Community Survey is probably something that a lot of people remember because that survey is conducted continuously. You know, when you turn to the news and you hear about the unemployment rate or the employment rate or how many people are buying cars, all of that kind of information comes from the Census Bureau.
Wow.
They may not say that when they report the news. They may not say, according to the Census Bureau, but trust me, they got that data from the Census Bureau. Often you'll hear your neighbors say, boy, I really like such and such a restaurant, but I've got to go so far to get to it. Well, maybe that restaurant doesn't know that your community could use their service. And so then they would locate where your community is. But maybe your community hasn't been completely counted. No business is going to open up somewhere where there aren't enough people to use their service. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No business is going to do that.
I hear constantly, I wish we had a Trader Joe's. I wish we had an IKEA. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that for Stark County to have a Trader Joe's or an IKEA. So what we need is for those businesses to go to the Census Bureau and see how many people live here. Who would love to shop there? Is that it?
And make sure that your neighbors complete the census.
Yes.
So they can be counted, and a place like Trader Joe's can see, oh, you know what, there's X number of people over there. Maybe we could do a survey of those people to see if they really like our store. And then they do the survey, people respond to it, and boom, you get that store.
And there you go. All right. Well, we need folks to go to my2020census.gov right now or call this number, 844-330-2020, 2020, and be sure to be counted. Carol Hector Harris, thank you so much for bringing this good information to our community today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.